This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Today is Liberation Day, according to President Trump, promising a new wave of tariffs on foreign goods. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The favored candidates come through in Florida and Wisconsin special elections. I'm Rich Johnson.
President Trump's pick to be the nation's top military officer is vowing to be apolitical. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Layoffs underway at the Department of Health and Human Services.
$8 million in annual lease costs.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, investors are bracing for the Trump tariff rollout this afternoon after markets were mixed yesterday. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
House Speaker Mike Johnson failed to squash an effort by new moms in Congress to vote by proxy.
We have not modernized Congress.
Ed Donahue, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Today is the day President Donald Trump declared Liberation Day in America as he prepares to announce an historic set of new tariffs against foreign goods coming into the country. Following the details, our John Stolnis is in Washington.
We have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, for decades. And, you know, that has to stop.
The president is set to make a major speech on the economy later this afternoon, where it is expected he will announce additional tariffs on imports that would be more sweeping than any in U.S. history, with one Trump aide saying the taxes imposed on these imports would generate about $600 billion a year. The president calls it an American Liberation Day, but many economists worry the president's attempt to encourage U.S. companies to bring their operations back into the U.S. will, in the short term, exacerbate an already thorny economic issue for most Americans: high prices on consumer goods. One Yale study estimates the average family could spend an extra $3,000 to $4,000 a year because of the tariffs. Democratic Senator Chris Coons sees no positives in the president's approach.
Tariffs are taxes. Tariffs are paid by consumers. Tariffs harm our relationships with the rest of the world.
And Democratic Senator Tim Kaine says there is one reason the president is pursuing tariffs to this degree.
Why invent this emergency? The emergency is being invented to do the tariffs, to do the taxes on everyday Americans. Why? So they can use the tariff revenue to give a tax cut to billionaires.
Kaine and other Democratic senators like Minority Leader Chuck Schumer introduced legislation yesterday seeking to overturn Trump's tariffs on Canada.
Donald Trump says he couldn't care less if you pay more. And it's not just a little.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked yesterday, what if this doesn't work?
It is going to work. And the president has a brilliant team of advisors who have been studying these issues for decades.
The Trump administration believes short-term pain may be necessary to achieve the ultimate goal of reshaping the country's production base and reducing government debt. John Stolnis, Washington.
Special elections in Florida and Wisconsin received a lot of national attention and money in what some of the candidates framed as a referendum on President Trump. But correspondent Rich Johnson reports in the end, the feared upsets on both sides of the political aisle didn't happen.
The cheers for Jimmy Patronis, Florida's chief financial officer. The Republican handily beat Democrat Gay Vallimont in the race to fill the first congressional district seat vacated by Matt Gaetz. Patronis enjoyed the endorsement of President Trump and pledged to make that backing count.
So rather than these members sitting around giving fake speeches to an empty chamber, I want to make sure that we're giving President Trump the tool to do the job that he needs. So I'm ready to make sure the president can fix the economy.
Despite Democrats' big advantage in campaign spending, Patronis won by 15% in the longtime GOP stronghold in southwest Florida. Meanwhile, in Florida's 6th congressional district on the Atlantic coast,
I want to see some change. We need change. We need new leadership.
That Democratic voter did not get his wish as Republican Randy Fine beat Democrat Josh Wheel by 14 points. That voter comment courtesy of WESH-TV. Florida 6 became vacant when Mike Waltz resigned to become President Trump's national security advisor. Both parties also spent big across Wisconsin in the nonpartisan race for a seat on the state Supreme Court. But this voter was not having it, especially the big bucks, high-profile, dubiously legal spending by Elon Musk.
He just makes me very angry. He uses money in ways that we're not used to. He should just stay out of local politics. He should stay out of all politics, frankly.
But in this race, the more liberal candidate, Susan Crawford, beat conservative and Trump-backed Brad Schimmel by 10 points. Crawford's victory holds the Wisconsin Supreme Court's 4-3 majority for liberals. I'm Richard Johnson.
More pink slips for government workers when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. There's more snow expected in the northern plains and upper Midwest through tonight. Let's get to the forecast with AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A rather strong storm over the central plains will track toward the upper Midwest as the day progresses, and this feature will continue to produce snow today from the Dakotas to mainly the northern half or so of Minnesota, as well as some snow and sleet from northern Wisconsin into northern sections of Michigan. Looking back to Tuesday, storm total snowfall through tonight may approach or even exceed a foot in some spots from around Fargo, North Dakota, through the Arrowhead of Minnesota and into far northwestern Wisconsin, with at least 1 to 3 inches of snow from western parts of the Dakotas into the northernmost part of lower Michigan. The southern side of this storm presents a heightened threat for severe weather today and tonight, with at least some risk for powerful thunderstorms extending from central and southern lower Michigan and Wisconsin southward into most of Tennessee, the northwestern half of Mississippi, and all of northeastern Texas, as well as most of Missouri and eastern Iowa. Any storm within this zone may bring damaging winds, large hail, destructive wind gusts, and tornadoes. This will be the first round of rainfall and repeated severe weather over some of the same locations into at least Saturday night, with cities such as Little Rock and Memphis facing the chance for severe weather each of the next 4 days, along with at least 8 to 12 inches of rain. For the rest of the nation, watch for showers reaching central New York and northeastern Pennsylvania by this afternoon, with showers of rain and snow dotting a large area of the west as a broad disturbance continues to serve as the focus for precipitation. Widely separated thunderstorms may even develop over parts of Georgia and the western portion of the Carolinas. In Las Vegas, a shower with a high of just 57. For Jacksonville, Florida, it's a breezy and very warm day with some sunshine and a high of 89. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow and listen on your preferred platform. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. President Trump's pick to lead the Joint Chiefs spent Tuesday on Capitol Hill for his Senate confirmation hearing. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani files this follow-up.
President Trump's pick to be the nation's top military officer is vowing to be apolitical while striking a humble tone during his Senate confirmation hearing.
I realize for many Americans I'm an unknown leader.
Dan Caine is a decorated fighter pilot, a retired 3-star general whom the president tabbed after firing Joint Chiefs Chairman C.Q. Brown.
Senators, I acknowledge that I'm an unconventional nominee. These are unconventional times.
And Caine tried to assure senators he will be nonpartisan, amid questions from Democrats about the president telling a story claiming Caine wore a MAGA hat during a meeting years ago.
I think the president was actually talking about somebody else, and I've never worn any political merchandise.
Caine also stopped short of criticizing top leaders for using a Signal chat to discuss an attack on Houthi rebels, but
we should always preserve the element of surprise.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The Trump administration continues to make good on its promise to cut government spending, with the latest rounds of layoffs impacting the Department of Health and Human Services. Following that story, correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The White House standing by its recent spending cuts, which include mass federal layoffs. The EPA credited for its recent cutbacks by White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Taxpayers will be saved $8 million in annual lease costs by moving staff out of the 323,000 square feet of space that the EPA currently occupies, which is completely unnecessary.
Now mass layoffs underway at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and at the Food and Drug Administration. this reportedly part of the Trump administration's plan to cut 10,000 jobs at the Department of Health and Human Services. It's been reported that when cuts are complete, the total HHS workforce will be cut from 82,000 to about 62,000 workers. This week, employees started receiving notices that they're out of a job. Just days ago, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced the expected layoffs of employees working in fields like tobacco use, also mental health, and workplace safety. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, how tariffs on prescription drugs may affect your pocketbook after these messages. It's 20 after. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Another uncertain day on Wall Street. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning bracing for those Trump tariffs, which will be announced this afternoon in the White House Rose Garden. Markets were mixed yesterday to start the second quarter. President Donald Trump set to begin the biggest gamble of his second term, betting that the broad-based tariffs on imports will jumpstart a new era for the U.S. economy and will generate revenue to justify the extension of the 2017 corporate tax cuts. Investors are bracing for the tariff announcement this afternoon.
A lot of clients that I've talked to at Raymond James just don't want to be caught offside because the president has a history of big, bold announcements, negative market reactions, and then changing his mind. Clients can't invest in that environment, and businesses cannot plan in that environment, and other governments don't know what this president wants. There is going to be months upon months of uncertainty related to tariffs. We still have to brace for that.
Raymond James, Ed Mills on CNBC, and here's CNBC Mad Money host Jim Cramer.
I think it's inflation. And I think the tariffs are inflationary, and that's what people are really thinking about. And I think that's extending to our market, which therefore means that there's not as much spending, which means the consumers pull back, which means you got to be careful.
Big Pharma waiting to see what the White House says about tariffs on prescription drugs. A third of all drugs prescribed in the United States are imported. Many generics come from India and China. And you may not realize where most of the big brand name drugs that are imported are made.
Ireland is the main hub. That country represented 20% of pharma imports in 2023 per ING. Germany, Switzerland, those are other hotspots. Last year, the U.S. imported at least $127 billion of pharmaceuticals from European countries. That's according to data from Import Genius. And that makes medicine our largest European import. So we talk about other things like wines and whiskeys, but it's really pharmaceuticals that is the biggest import.
CNBC's Angelica Peebles. Gas prices are higher, up 10 cents a gallon in just the past month. This is the time of year that summer blends start to roll out. They are more expensive. AAA says the national average for a gallon of regular is now $3.20. On today's watch list, so much is happening, but it's going to be all about tariffs with the Trump announcement. Tesla, though, set to report first quarter deliveries. We get a forecast today for retail sales for the full year from the National Retail Federation, and we get March private company hiring numbers in the ADP employment report. The big government jobs report comes Friday morning.
That'll be interesting to hear about. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Now 24 after. AG Bondi goes after murder suspect when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Acting legend Val Kilmer has passed away. He died from pneumonia. His acting credits include the movies Tombstone, True Romance, Batman Forever, and, of course, Top Gun. Val Kilmer was 65. The Department of Justice announces that the death penalty is on the table for suspect Luigi Mangione, charged in the killing of the United Healthcare CEO. Correspondent Julie Walker is following the case.
Attorney General Pam Bondi directs federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty against Luigi Mangione, the man accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson on a New York street in December. While New York does not have the death penalty, Mangione is facing separate federal and state murder charges. Those federal charges carry the possibility of death. In a statement, Bondi says, after careful consideration, I have directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. Julie Walker, New York.
Two bipartisan mothers brought the House of Representatives to a halt and stopped Speaker Mike Johnson from killing a measure to allow proxy voting for new parents. Ed Donahue explains.
Republican Anna Paulina Luna from Florida and Democrat Brittany Pedersen from Colorado are pushing for the option for new parents to have another member of Congress vote on their behalf for 12 weeks. Pedersen had a diaper on her shoulder and 4-year-old son Sam in her arms.
It is unfathomable that in 2025 we have not modernized Congress to address these very unique challenges that members face.
Johnson doesn't like it, but this opens the door to a House vote.
96% of House Republicans voted against proxy voting because they believe it's unconstitutional and they agree that it would open a Pandora's box.
Republicans say the temporary proxy policy Democrats put in place during the pandemic was abused by member absences. North Carolina's Virginia Fox says people like doctors and police officers can't work by proxy.
Members of Congress need to show up for work.
Ed Donahue, Washington.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
President Trump is expected to lay out reciprocal tariffs. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The business world prepares for Trump's tariffs to begin, and 3 American soldiers found dead in Lithuania.
A record speech delivered by a Democratic senator. I'm Clayton Neville.
A student with a revoked visa plans to self-deport, an arrest made in an air traffic control tower brawl, and another Ivy League school facing government funding cuts. We'll tell you why.
National Security Advisor Waltz may have done it again. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. We've had plenty of severe weather this week. Today, no exception. Here's the Wednesday forecast with AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Nothing short of a severe weather outbreak is expected to develop today and last into tonight, along and ahead of a cold front slowly shifting eastward across the southern plains, the Midwest, and into the Great Lakes region, with a large zone from the Austin, Texas area north and east through southern Wisconsin, most of lower Michigan, and even far northwestern Pennsylvania, in line for thunderstorms that may be able to produce large hail, damaging wind gusts, numerous tornadoes, and torrential downpours that may bring flash flooding. The tornado risk is expected to be the highest within a zone from Arkansas to the southwestern suburbs of Indianapolis, and strong, long-track tornadoes are likely, especially in this area. This potent storm kicks off what may turn out to be a historically wet stretch through the start of the weekend, with repeated rounds of heavy rain, thunderstorms, and at times severe weather that are likely to bring over a foot of rain from northeastern Arkansas into western Kentucky. A rather expansive zone with the potential for at least 2 to 4 inches of rain through Saturday night reaches from the Dallas Metroplex to western portions of Pennsylvania and Maryland. The storm also brings strong winds today, with gusts of at least 40 miles per hour from eastern Texas and the central Gulf Coast to western New York and through the Great Lakes states. This feature will also produce inches of snow from the Dakotas into northern Minnesota and the upper peninsula of Michigan, and even some showers stretching across eastern Pennsylvania and much of upstate New York. The west also remains active, with the greatest coverage of rain and snow shifting from the coast toward interior sections. This means drier conditions for California outside of the higher terrain, as showers of rain and snow spread from Nevada and the Four Corners region to the northern and central Rockies, even the Pacific Northwest coastline. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow and listen on your preferred platform. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. In the Rose Garden at the White House later today, after markets close on Wall Street, at what he is calling Liberation Day, President Trump is expected to unveil his new tariffs. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports there are both risks and benefits to the president's plan.
The cabinet will be here for the event. It'll be our first Rose Garden event of this administration. So you all will be invited to attend and cover this historic moment. The president will be announcing a tariff plan that will roll back the unfair trade practices that have been ripping off our country for decades. He's doing this in the best interest of the American worker.
The president says America has been ripped off for decades.
That has to stop.
He says it will be Liberation Day.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. And basically, as you know, and as you've been seeing, not reporting as accurately as it should be reported because it's a massive story. Business is coming back to the United States so that they don't have to pay tariffs.
Chief Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer has a different word.
A nightmare for the American economy.
And colleague Tim Kaine says it'll amount to a huge national sales tax, with other nations like Canada retaliating.
They'll tax groceries and food products. They'll tax building supplies at a time when home prices are too high already. They will tax fertilizer to our farmers. About 80% of the potash that is used by our farmers for fertilizer comes from Canada.
But to House Speaker Mike Johnson,
you have to trust the president's instincts on the economy, okay? And why? This isn't blind faith. Remember what he accomplished in the first administration. Before COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, not the U.S., the whole world. It may be rocky in the beginning, but I think that this will make sense for Americans and it will help all Americans.
And while the president may use the tariff threats as negotiating leverage, the uncertainty is leading to drops in consumer confidence, and businesses aren't sure what will come next. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
World leaders have been reacting to the proposed tariffs. There's concern for their own nation's economies, as well as threats of retaliatory action against U.S. goods and manufacturers. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the European Commission's top executive warns of a pushback, and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, speaking on CTV, says Canada is ready to retaliate.
President Trump is in the process of trying to fundamentally restructure the U.S. economy, and that means that our economy here needs to change dramatically as well. And as I made clear to President Trump in our call last week, I will reject all attempts to weaken Canada, all attempts to wear us down, to break us down so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen.
In Strasbourg, Ursula von der Leyen tells officials Europe has a good plan to retaliate if forced to by President Donald Trump's strategy.
Europe holds a lot of cards, from trade to technology to the size of our market. But this strength is also built on our readiness to take firm countermeasures if necessary. All instruments are on the table.
Von der Leyen says, too, citizens are saddened by the administration's tariffs plan.
So many Europeans feel utterly disheartened by the announcement from the United States. Let me be clear. Europe did not start this confrontation. We think it is wrong.
President Donald Trump has promised to roll out on Wednesday a set of tariffs or taxes on imports from other countries that he says will free the US from any reliance on foreign goods. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Here's one for the record books. Democratic Senator Cory Booker has recorded the longest Senate floor speech in history. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Democrats like Congressman Pete Aguilar say their party's fed up with the Trump administration and its policies.
They've not taken a single step toward bringing down the high cost of living. In fact, the President of the United States said he couldn't care less if prices go up.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The American people know that we're on their side. Trump isn't. and we are unified in that approach.
This is Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey stood on the Senate floor for a speech that broke records for time. Booker said the purpose of the speech, which he did have help from at times from other Democrats, was meant to disrupt the normal business of the United States Senate for as long as he was physically able. Booker criticized recent federal layoffs and DOGE cuts.
We are not solving the deficit in what they're proposing here. They're cutting and cutting and cutting things that make no sense to cut.
Booker said his constituents are worried about losing Social Security and Medicaid. He shared a story of his father's battle with Parkinson's and the impact of that battle on his family.
I watched that degenerative disease take from his life for 20 years and how much it cost, the thousands of dollars it cost my mom to take care of him. I know so many people personally whose parents have Alzheimer's. I know so many Americans who are not powerful, they're not rich. I know so many Americans who live in fear every day that one little thing will happen to them that will destabilize their financial well-being. And now those millions of Americans, because of a president and a man named Musk, are driving fear into them.
Booker broke the record of Senator Strom Thurmond, who filibustered the Civil Rights Act of 1957 for 24 hours and 18 minutes. Leader Schumer had an interruption shortly after the record was broken.
Would the senator yield for a question?
Chuck Schumer, it's the only time in my life I can tell you no.
I just want to tell you a question. Do you know you have just broken the record? Do you know how proud this caucus is of you? Do you know how proud America is of you?
I'm Clayton Neville.
Prior to Booker's 25-hour and 4-minute marathon filibuster, the longest ever speech in the Senate was 67 years ago when South Carolina's Strom Thurmond spent 24 hours and 18 minutes attempting to stall legislation for the 1957 Civil Rights Act. U.S. soldiers found dead on foreign soil, and the app Signal has raised new concerns. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Pentagon reports that 3 of the 4 American soldiers missing in Lithuania have been found dead. Here's an update from correspondent Ben Thomas.
3 are gone, and 1 is missing.
President Trump telling reporters he's been informed 3 soldiers missing in Lithuania since last week have been found dead in an armored vehicle.
Really heavy, that lifted the heaviest equipment, and it would seem that the bank of the lake collapsed. You know, the weight is so big. And it was at night, and it was very cold weather, and ice, a lot of ice.
The conditions when we got out here on site were not like anything that we've ever had to dive through before.
Navy Lieutenant Eric Costello, part of the underwater team.
The amount of mud, diving in a peat bog, just complete zero viz, hard to move kind of diving.
As the president said, a 4th remains missing. The soldiers were on a tactical training exercise. I'm Ben Thomas.
A Cornell University student who was involved in pro-Gaza protests on campus and sued President Trump after his visa was revoked says he's now self-deporting. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
A Cornell University student facing deportation after his visa was revoked over campus activism says he's leaving the U.S. Mamadou Tall had been trying to fight his case in court, but in a social media post says, "I have lost faith I could walk the streets without being abducted." The Trump administration says it revoked Tall's student visa because of his alleged involvement in what it calls disruptive protests. Tall says he's dropping his federal lawsuit, which had cited his right to free speech. The 31-year-old citizen of the UK and Gambia was suspended by Cornell last year after a group of pro-Palestinian activists disrupted a campus career fair. Julie Walker, New York.
A Federal Aviation Administration employee working at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport has been charged with assault following a fight that broke out in the control tower. Fox News reports that Damon Marcellus Gaines, a 38-year-old resident of Maryland, was arrested and placed on administrative leave. The latest in a string of incidents at the Washington, D.C. airport. In March, a United Airlines flight hit a kite while it was landing, and prior to that, a Delta plane and a U.S. fighter jet came dangerously close to each other. Then, as you'll recall, in January, an American Airlines commuter jet and Army helicopter collided, killing 67 people. America in the Morning continues. In Massachusetts, jury selection began in the second murder trial for a woman accused of killing her police officer boyfriend. Following courtroom details, here's correspondent Haya Panjwani.
Jury selection has begun in Karen Reed's retrial over the death of her Boston police boyfriend. Reed, who's accused of ramming into John O'Keefe with her SUV and leaving him to die in January 2022, faces a second trial on charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of a crime. Her attorneys argue that she was framed and, after a mistrial in June, have tried to block a second trial on some of the charges. The Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court last week cleared the way for a new trial on all three charges, but Reed's attorneys filed a motion in federal court arguing that a retrial will violate her constitutional protection against double jeopardy. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Potential new trouble for National Security Advisor Mike Waltz after being accused of inviting a reporter to a sensitive Signal chat. A report says he may have leaked info through his personal Gmail account. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
The Washington Post reports that after being embroiled in the Signal scandal last week, he may have also discussed sensitive military positions and powerful weapon systems related to an ongoing conflict using his personal Gmail account. The Post went on to say that Waltz, along with other members of the National Security Council, have used Gmail for highly technical conversations with other government agencies. This account, according to emails that the Post saw, with headers showing that others on the emails also use their government-issued accounts. The Post also made note of less sensitive but potentially exploitable information, mostly related to his schedule and other work documents. National Security Council spokesman Brian Hughes said Waltz didn't and wouldn't send classified information on an open account, and he has seen no evidence of Waltz using his personal email as described. Another report shows his hacked information online that had been found in other hacked database leaks. Find me online at chuckpalm.com.
America in the Morning rolls on with Robert Workman and a check of midweek sports.
The Dodgers rallied past the Braves 3-1 last night to improve to 7-0. That's their best start since moving to Los Angeles in 1958. Padres are now 6-0. They shut down the Guardians 7-0, a two-hitter for Michael King in his court. Brewers blanked the Royals 5-0 for their first win after an 0-4 start. 5 pitchers held KC to 4 hits. Nathan Eovaldi threw the first complete game of the season in the Rangers' 1-0 win over the Reds, a 4-hit gem with 8 strikeouts. Wyatt Langford's first-inning dinger, all the support he needed, and all he got. Rays shut out the Pirates 7-0. Shane Baz and the comeback scattered 9 hits and combined to fan 15. Tigers scuttled the Mariners 4-1. Casey Mize and 3 relievers combined on a 1-hitter. Diamondbacks handed the Yankees their first loss 7-5. Marlins, Cubs, Twins, Angels, Blue Jays, and Giants were winners. NBA, the Timberwolves tripped the Nuggets 140-139 in double overtime despite a 61-point triple-double from Nikola Jokic for Denver. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was fouled just before the horn and hit 2 of 3 free throws to win it. Bulls beat the Raptors to clinch a play-in berth in the East. Hockey, the Kings down the first-place Jets 4-1, while the East-leading Capitals got by the Bruins 4-3. Alex Ovechkin picked up goal number 891. He's just 4 away from passing Wayne Gretzky. And the Blues clipped the Red Wings in overtime for their 10th consecutive win. That's Wednesday Sports.
Taxpayer dollars halted to yet another Ivy League school. We'll have that and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Actor Val Kilmer, best known for his role as Iceman in the movie Top Gun opposite Tom Cruise, and portraying Jim Morrison in the Doors movie, has passed away. Kilmer had recovered from throat cancer, but died from pneumonia, surrounded by family in his Los Angeles home. Val Kilmer was 65. Following the Trump administration placing reviews on billions of dollars in government funding grants to Ivy League institutions, the government has now halted millions in funding to New Jersey's Princeton University. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
Princeton University is the latest to have federal funding threatened by the Trump administration amid investigations into anti-Semitism and campus protests. The New Jersey Ivy League, where Albert Einstein spent his final years, says it received notifications this week that research grants would be suspended from agencies including the Departments of Energy, Defense, and NASA. Princeton President Christopher Eisgruber says Princeton will cooperate with the government, but he also says the school will vigorously defend academic freedom and its right to due process. On Monday, a federal task force on anti-Semitism announced that Harvard University was facing a review, and recently Columbia University agreed to several demands from the federal government after $400 million in funding was pulled. In an opinion piece published in The Atlantic on March 19th, President Eisgruber called the funding cancellation at Columbia a radical threat to scholarly excellence and to America's leadership in research. I'm Jennifer King.
There seems to be more than enough finger-pointing as to why Snow White is a box office bust. Kevin Carr explains what's gone wrong.
This week, Deadline reported Disney might lose up to $115 million on the live-action Snow White remake. So, what went wrong? Trouble started in pre-production when some people complained that star Rachel Zegler wasn't white enough for the title role. Later, award-winning actor Peter Dinklage, who has a form of dwarfism, complained on Marc Maron's podcast about the continued use of dwarfs in the story.
But you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave.
When Disney changed to CGI characters, others complained this took jobs away from little people actors. Both stars, Gal Gadot and Rachel Zegler, pointed out flaws in the original film to Variety and Extra.
There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. Not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Zegler became an outspoken advocate for Palestine, while Gadot staunchly supported Israel. This led to backlash and protests from both sides. All political controversies aside, one of the film's biggest problems is its colossal $270 million budget before marketing. Disney's live-action remakes are not always huge hits, and the billion-dollar grosses mostly result from remakes from the Disney Renaissance of the 1990s. Still, this week, Business Insider said the film might end up in the black after all, after ancillary markets like streaming and theme park interests are figured in. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.